I decided when I was 4 years old, I was playing in the sandbox with my little playmates and making houses, you know, and my playmate, little Patty, she made a home that looked like an anthill. And I had a little butter knife or something out there, and I carved it and I shaped it into a form. And 4 years old, and my mother was looking out the window and she said, "Oh, Tommy, are you going to be an architect?" And I said, "What's an architect?" "Well, they design buildings." And I thought, yeah, it's what I've always wanted to be. And I'm too stubborn. You can't persuade me not to. I was from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, which was near Frank Lloyd Wright's Taliesin. So I actually took care of homes that were designed by Frank Lloyd Wright students. And so I went up there and took care of them and went inside and studied them and talked to the owners. So I had some basis in architecture. I went through Taliesin, every room in Taliesin. I went to Cornell University in New York. A neighbor his older brother had gone there and said it was the best school. And my counselor even said, "Don't go there, you'll never make it." And I thought, well, see, I'm stubborn, so I had to do it. And I applied to Minnesota and Illinois. Wisconsin didn't have a school. And I was accepted at Cornell. I wasn't the top of my class, but I was involved in a lot of things. I was president of the class, and I was drum major, and I was in the band and orchestra, all that stuff, student council. And I think I got in on a prayer, basically. But Cornell was a tough school. And a lot of kids were from prep schools in the East Coast. And so they were very good at the liberal arts kind of stuff. But somehow I did very well in the design architecture program. I struggled in some of the liberal arts things. And so it challenged me, and there was points where I wanted to quit. What you learn is how to overcome difficulties. And I met wonderful people, but it taught me to question things, to be a critical thinker, to be more analytical, to challenge things. The hard thing was that my father literally went bankrupt after my first year. It's an expensive school, and he had money, but then he lost it all. And he said I couldn't go back, and I said, I am going back. He says, well, you can't, there's no money. I said, I'm gonna do it. See, I'm stubborn. And so I went back and I used some money that I'd saved to go on a LDS mission. And I got through my second year, but I had to wash pots and pans and wait on tables and cut grass and clean gutters, show slides, do all those things. So what did it teach me? Work. And it was a good experience. A lot of my friends were very rich, and they were traveling to the Alps for a Christmas vacation, and I was taking a Greyhound bus home or hitchhiking. But it taught me to work. It taught me to pull through difficult things.
When did you fit your mission in?
After my second year of university. And I was out for 3 years because I had to earn money to go back in. I had run out of money in my fourth year. My father had no money, my family had no money, I had no money. And I was in an expensive school, even though I was washing dishes and doing all that stuff. And I had run out of options, so I went to the dean and I said, I need to drop out. Why? And I told him what I had done and what the situation was. And he said, we knew that. I wanted to see if you were going to exhaust all your resources. We have money for you. So we'll make sure that you can graduate and we'll help you out. So I don't know if he saw that there was some ability, but that was a gift. And after that wonderful career at Cornell, I got a job at $700 a month, $8,400 a year. I had a job at a premier firm. It was Fitzhugh Scott at the time, Kaler Slater Fitzhugh Scott now. And I was so excited to work and to be around these geniuses and very talented people. And some of the first work I did was the expansion of Eero Saarinen's War Memorial in Milwaukee. And that was a privilege. And then we did, some other things. One of the first renderings I did was on the cover of professional journals, Progressive Architecture. But one thing you learn in architecture is that the market goes up and down. And I got caught in a downturn, and they laid off 3 of us. And so the next place I went to was more of a developer firm. And they did all these, condos and rental units, and everything was quick. Everything was quick. So I learned how to design quickly. I learned how to do things freehand. I learned how to work in a team, like I said, quickly. The boss would come in and say, I need this by 1 o'clock, and it was 11:30. So we'd all get around a table and we'd all contribute and draw. And then, of course, I saw that wasn't taking me where I wanted to go, and I worked for another firm that was more of a standard firm where we did medical, housing, financial institutions, banks, and all that stuff. And I got into, design work that I like to do. And then I realized this really was not where I wanted to go. And with my wife coming from California, I decided to move to Utah. I had driven through Logan once, and I stopped. I had my portfolio with me, and I had interviewed with firms in California and Arizona, and they all said, you have a nice portfolio, but if I were you, I'd go to a small town in mid-America and hang out your shingle. And I thought, why? You have this beautiful firm. No, it's not all it's cracked up to be. Find a little firm, a little town, and hang out your shingle. Anyway, so I'm coming through Logan, and I stopped at the red light I missed Main Street after doing some touring. And on the side, there was a sign that said, Haycock and Schaub Architects, which was the forerunner of Design West. And I thought, why don't I go in and interview? And then the light turned green. And so I drove back to Milwaukee. And it was a couple years later that I met Tony Wagner in a Herman Miller conference in Michigan. And I said, you're from Logan. He says, yeah, what do you know about Logan? And I said, well, if I'm not mistaken, your office has 2 curved fences and a Mugo pine, and it's a gray-green bungalow on the north side of the street. You have that kind of recall? Yeah. So, and then I told him a fib. I said, my family's coming out to go to Yellowstone this summer. We're going to come through the area. Do you mind if we stop in and see you? And he said, yeah, as long as you're out here, you might as well come in. And after that discussion, I went up to my hotel room and I called my wife and I said, we're going to Yellowstone this summer. So I came out, but I was very audacious, and I said, I want to be a partner. I want to be a partner. I was like 30, I was 28 or so. Well, that's, I wasn't ready, but that's what I said. And they said, well, I don't know if you can do it now, but he called me 8 months later and he said, we have a position now. So I came out and joined him in 76. And they put me in charge of the Logan Regional Hospital. I had done one addition to a hospital prior to that, so I had no experience. I had never done shop drawings. I had never done construction administration. I had never led a team. I had designed, but I had never done working drawings. And I was in charge of this 180,000 square foot hospital, new hospital. But you learn, you watch, you listen, and the best thing is you find the people that have talent and you learn from them, and so the team does it. And the project won an AIA award. The project made money because I learned how to manage. But after 3.5 years, I was burned out. I wanted to do something that was quick, smaller, more nimble. And so I started my own firm. I had no money. And the biggest thing is that this was 1980. And 1980 was a bad recession. And nobody was hiring architects at the time, and nobody was investing. And interest rates were 14% or so, and unemployment. It was the dumbest time to start a firm, and especially in Logan, where it's not really the center of design. People told me, you're never going to survive. There's too many architects. And I said, they're going to have to move because I'm going to do it. Again, stubborn. And so pretty soon I had a stake center, and then I had another LDS stake center. Then we had the city hall. Then I had a manufacturing plant, and then I had to hire people. And hire people and get more work and get more work and hire people, and pretty soon we were growing. And I will say that the key to success was having great people. It wasn't me. It was bringing on, the first key person was Kim Campbell, who now has his own firm in St. George, and Bruce Haslam, who was a great, great partner because he also had a magna cum laude degree in business finance, so he could manage that, which I didn't do. And then eventually we became larger. We got into healthcare work. Intermountain Healthcare hired us, and Bruce and Brent both had healthcare experience, and I had some. And then one of the major things that caused our success was Don Finlayson connected with us. He was from Hanson Lindmeyer which is an international firm. And he came as a consultant and worked a couple of years, and then finally we realized, let's work together. So here we have an internationally famed healthcare planner, and he had been used to working in firms of 1,000 people. And we had 15, maybe 20. But he joined us. I put him in charge of the Salt Lake office, which we had set up. And pretty soon the office was up to 30 and 40 and 60. One of our major competitors was Thomas Peterson Hammond, TPH. They were healthcare planners or designers, and we were. So we were always competing to get the work. And the logic was, why don't we merge together? They came on board, and we did a $110 million project for the U. And we decided we worked together so well, let's just merge. The culture was so good that we soon didn't know where anybody came from. We didn't know if they were a Jensen Haslam firm or if they came from TPH. I started off as doing everything, but that's thin. And then I focused on design. In fact, one of the key moments, Bruce Haslam came to me one time and said, Tom, we'll do the work, you find the work. So I went out and started to become a marketer. And that's what I was doing when Don joined us. And I was president, but when the merger came along, it became difficult because I was in Logan, and now the main corpus of the firm was in Salt Lake. That was the bigger body. So I became chairman of the board, and he became president. But I was designing, but then we hired a great designer, Dave Castle. And I realized that my role was not designing anymore. It was finding something else that needed to be done. So I did marketing, but I got into risk management and problem solving, client relations. And so I redefined myself 3 or 4 times. And that was actually interesting. My focus, different from many of the other architects that you've talked to, was not focused on design as much as it was building a firm and really focusing on the people and trying to get them to do the talents that they had best. We always seemed to get the right people at the right time, so the firm kept growing. And actually the fun was in growing the firm. We did a lot of work for the federal government because I learned you got to look at the source of money. Developers go up and down with the interest rates. Church is reliant on tithing or donations of the people. Commercial is also a different source of money. The federal government prints the money, so that was a good source during downtimes. 2 of the key projects, one was Huntsman. Huntsman was a cancer research lab, is a cancer research lab, and I teamed up with Fred Babcock. He had a relationship with the Huntsmans, and we had technical background in laboratories and in medical. And so that relationship, and I have to say that the interview, we were competing against 5 or 6 national firms. You know, the SOMs and NBBJs and all that stuff. And I gave the technical presentation, how we're going to do it, who's going to be there, all that left brain stuff. And then Fred got up, and it was like a spiritual experience. It was like people were crying. He talked about giving hope to the patients, giving hope to the families, and making a cancer center that would serve and bless people. And bang, that won the job. And then, of course, we did the first phase, and they wanted to do another phase and another phase. Well, I was managing the first phase. I was way over my head. The second phase, Don Finlayson had joined us, and this was his forte, where he could manage huge jobs. Karen Huntsman, when we met with her, she said, "This is about giving hope." That became the watchword for that project. So hope became the subject of the sketches that we did and our conversation and how we built hope. We built a tower, or designed a hot tower of hope. The facility itself was not designed as a hospital. It was designed almost like a lodge or a resort, a hotel, so that they felt like they were being treated so well. They all had beautiful views out into the valley or up on the mountain. And so the facility was designed around the psychology of people who had been told that they have cancer. And this would give them some brightness. The sunshine came in, they had decks they could go out on. And they just had this, instead of being down a corridor with green walls and little cubicles, they were being treated like they were in the best lodge on Park City. One of the major projects which carried us through the recession of 2008, I was on a golf outing, basically out at Torrey Pines. And everybody was criticizing me because I was spending money. While I was there, I got a phone call from an architectural firm from Philadelphia. And he said, "We've been studying you, and we understand you've done data centers and you've done federal work, government work. So we'd like to have a collaboration with you on a project in Utah." We did one of these projects in Virginia, and that's the only one. And I said, "Oh, okay." He said, "It's kind of a larger project." And I said, "Oh, is that 100,000 square feet?" He said, "No, it's actually several million square feet." So that became the National Security Agency out at Point of the Mountain, which, huge job, important job. Nobody sees it because it's top secret. Proud of that. I got a call one day from a long-lost cousin in Jordan. Now that's not South Jordan, that's the one next to Israel and Syria and Iraq. And he asked me to come over and teach at a university, American university in Madaba, Jordan. And after doing some vetting and looking at it, I thought my wife would just say, "Are you kidding me? That's ridiculous." ISIS was fighting over there. But she said, I think this would be interesting." So we packed up our bags and rented our house out, and we went to Jordan. And we taught at a university there. 2 of the classes I taught, I had no preparation for, except go into this room and teach the class. And I said, "What class?" "Just go in and teach." And I asked the students, and they said, "This is graphic design." "I'm not trained in graphic design." I said, "Okay, what do you want to learn?" "We want to know concept development." I thought, okay, I can do that. So I got out my whiteboard markers and we started discussing what a problem was and how to solve it. And some of those kids won international awards, not because of me, but they were talented. Another one was a course called cultural development. And again, my dean walked me into the class without me knowing what the class was. There are no textbooks. My internet connection was 1 meg. I had nothing. There was no library. So it had to be what was in my soul or memory. So let's find something and solve it, you know. One young woman, she's a woman who's a Palestinian, lowest on the totem pole. She said, "I want to take one street in Amman, Jordan, 4 million population, and change it from incandescent lighting to LED lighting on the streets." I thought, that's a great idea. Do it. So she went off, and in 6 weeks she came back with all the photometrics and all the financial studies, how much operational cost it was, and how much lumens, you know. And I thought it was great. There was an article in the Amman, Jordan Times in English. It said 3 months after I got back that the municipality of Amman decided to change all of their lighting from incandescent to LED. She changed the world. I came back. Nexus said, "I'd like to join them again." And they said, "You have too many gray hair. We want the young people to do the marketing." And I said, "Okay, fine." So I thought, I wanted to keep working. And I thought I could do marketing, so I called major construction companies. And Wadman was a great fit. So my job then was to go to my former competitors and take them to lunch as a marketing thing. And it turned out that it was not marketing It was making friends, and they became best friends. Every time I lost a job, it broke my heart. And I still walk by those buildings and say, dang, you know. But I learned, once I learned that we didn't get selected for a project, I moved on. And I let go of it. So it always hurt to lose a project, but you move on. We did fine. I've had a great career. I suppose if I was highly egotistical, I could say I'm the supreme designer, and I would keep trying to think that I'm the best designer, but I found people that were much better. So I moved over and found different things to do. I could let that bother me, but it doesn't, because I can enjoy the work that they did. When I started, it was drafting on pencil, you know, on paper basically, and then to Mylar, and then to ink, and then pin bar and computer, and now they're into things that are way beyond me. So that has, it used to be that you'd wait till the end of a job and then do a rendering by some artist out in California. And now they want a rendering every week or every day, you know. So the productivity and the ability for the designer through the CAD systems to be able to see things in 3D and rotate and expand and pull things apart, it blows my mind. I mean, it's an amazing thing. I believe that great architecture comes out of it. Some doesn't. So just because you have a fancy tool doesn't mean you're going to have a great sculpture. The other thing is that the materials have changed. We used to use wood and concrete and brick and, you know, steel, but now it's all these polymers and all types of exotic materials that can create finishes that are way beyond what we could think of originally. And the structural systems, think about what Santiago Calatrava does. If you can create, through the technology, not just a whiz-bang building, but something that touches the soul. There were no marketing people when I started. People hoped for projects to come through the door. And then things changed. Maybe I contributed to some of that, but yeah, we go out and we knock on doors. We make phone calls. We have brochures and technology, and now you can send things electronically. So that has changed. I think it has become far more collaborative, where people recognize. I did a lot of work that was collaborative. We had Edward Larrabee Barnes that joined us with work. We collaborated with Babcock or sometimes with other firms. And it's a collaboration where you say, I can do this really well, but not this. And so maybe somebody else that can do this really well. And so that collaboration makes it a much better product. The AIA is a much better organization. When I came out of school, it was a country club organization. And most of my fellow classmates said, I'm not AIA, I'm not going to be AIA. And I thought, But then I got involved, and I see the efforts that AIA has made in legislation. And I used to always look at their projections for markets and for their continuing education. I think that is wonderful. So the AIA is a very much more involved organization than it was when I started here in Utah. Well, architecture, you have to love it. I mean, don't go into it for the money. You can make some money, but it's not nearly as much as medical or lawyers. And you have to love it, and you have to love and be willing to sacrifice for it. When I was doing the Logan Hospital, I was averaging 16 hours a day, and I got sick, but you did it. And you stayed up and you worked and you did it. And it turned out to be a good good thing. And they also need to know that they are good at some things, but not good at everything. I thought I was a great designer, and it turned out that I was a much better marketer, and other people were better designers. Nobody could tell me that. I had to find that out. And so you have to learn what your skills are and what you're not good at. I made a decision when I was 4 years old. I didn't know what I was doing back then, but it turned out to be a good thing for me. I would not want to spend my life selling computers or, being a lawyer. I don't know. I don't think I could do that. I do love selling. I do love interaction with people. I do love solving problems. And I think that's what it's all about.